So you should be seeing a note on your screen. So you can just click on it. So welcome to the Chapter 3 Technology and Thinking web conference. It's from the text Thinking Collaboratively, Learning in a Community of Inquiry by Randy D. Garrison. My name is Dawn. So thank you for joining me for today's web conference. Let's just take a moment and make sure that you're acclimated to the Zoom tools so that you can participate fully. First of all, if you just take a moment, locate the chat box to ensure that you're able to click in there. If you want to be able to have access to, see the Zoom tools better, you can always click at the top right, click on view and exit, select exit full screen to make sure you're not in full screen. And that kind of gives you a little more flexibility with what you're seeing. For your audio, if you're having any trouble, Dusty, your dog is so cute. I am in love with your dog. Okay, so click for audio. You can click the down arrow next to the microphone icon. You should find it in the bottom left corner, and you can select the correct microphone, so to speak or to hear. And you can also click on that to mute and unmute. And if you're having any trouble showing your video, I see everybody on here. But if you need to step away, feel free to just click on the video icon at the bottom. Let's just take a moment and make sure that you're able to adequately see and hear everything. Do a little quality check. So if you could take a moment, locate in the bottom right reactions. If you could click on that, you'll see a raised hand icon. So if you are seeing in the top left, it should be a record icon. It should be like a little white circle with a red dot in the middle. If you're seeing that, that means I'm recording. If you're seeing the quality check at the top, if you're able to hear me, go ahead and raise your hand. And thank you, Dusty. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dave. Awesome. You guys can go ahead and click back on, and now it should say lower hand. These are our learning objectives. Attendees will understand that technology has the potential to change the way that students learn. And secondly, attendees will understand that educational technology can allow for deep learning by allowing students to collaborate and also to think deeply. Technology has the potential to disrupt education. What this means is that having and using the technology in a classroom must move the needle in terms of student thinking and learning. According to Bryn Holston and McAfee in 2014, general purpose technologies of information and communication technologies, or they call them ICTs, have allowed us to look at things in new and unique ways. This means, for instance, a Chromebook should really be used in more than just a Google search a current event for a history class. So let's explore this idea. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. Which of these are effective ways to be able to use technology in a classroom? So if you could just take a moment and click on the option that you feel, you can only pick one, that you feel is the most effective way or an effective way to use technology in a classroom. Awesome. So it looks like we have three. Awesome. Okay, so this is what you guys said. Given all the choices, a stack of laptops as an easel. You know, I sadly I feel like I've seen all these things happen. You guys maybe have as well. For a place to put our teacher's edition. The third one being students updating their status on social media. Maybe not, but the second one is a great way that perhaps you maybe have even used things like virtual algebra tiles to show on an interactive whiteboard that really can deepen the student understanding. So that's just showing you guys got it right. Nice job. Okay, so thinking about social media, you might think that using social media would be a great tool to encourage a deeper educational discourse and work collaboratively to uncover deeper meaning. But the reality is that when social media, while it does a great job of helping students stay in touch with friends and share activities and personal interests, it does little to encourage those deep collaborative conversations that would tend to lead to deeper thought and meaning. So ultimately, social media does not lead students to consider the perspective of others, because the tendency is that students, and unfortunately adults, we tend to gravitate with those with similar viewpoints. And so that what that ends up being is that confirms our previously held biases. So let's just kind of take a look at this idea. Let's see if you remember the things that I just shared. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. Think about, what is the role of social media in terms of thinking and learning? Do you think it encourages depth of thought and sustained discourse? Do you think it helps students stay in touch with friends and share activities? Or do you think you can actually track student standards mastery with that? Wouldn't that be nice? So if you just want to go ahead and click into that, and I might go ahead and end that poll because I know I'm short on time. So these are the results. Yes, absolutely. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. Social media, it can help students stay in touch with friends and share activities, but it really is not going to encourage that depth of thought. And of course, it is not going to, almost forgot to stop sharing. It's not going to track standards mastery. So perhaps part of the reason why social media is ineffective as a learning tool is because students don't really have a deep knowledge of technology. So that was actually found by Kirschner and Van Marienboer. Furthermore, these two found that most students are not skilled in information problem solving, nor do they have the metacognition to know what they don't know in order to know what they need to learn. Now, this is where learning analytics can come into play. These are technologies fairly new that are very effective in the classroom because they can provide data to the teacher for things such as what students know, what they don't know, and then what they're ready to learn. Some learning analytics technology are even able to understand if students are engaged in thinking and learning collaboratives, or if only one person is doing all the work. Now, depending on what your what your role is, you may be very familiar or not familiar. So I'd like us to just take a moment. If you can locate the Zoom annotation tools, those are going to be found at the top, I believe, right of your screen. If you want to click on annotation and choose a stamp, you pick any stamp and place it on the continuum line below, the place that best describes your level of understanding and your comfort level with learning analytics in a classroom. So for instance, you would want to put strongly agree if you have a deep understanding and you use learner analytics on a regular basis in your classroom. Whereas if you've never heard of it before, you want to click, put your stamp on strongly disagree, and then anywhere in between, wherever you feel comfortable. If you're not sure, you're like, yeah, I kind of know about it, but we haven't used it, it's anywhere in the middle. Okay, so that's exciting. We're kind of leaning more towards we're a little more comfortable with it. That's super exciting. All right, let me go ahead and clear all the drawings. Fantastic. So educational technology can make it possible for teachers to provide the same information that they would have otherwise stated in a lecture, like the sage on a stage. They can provide that same information as a recorded video that students can watch at home or a study hall on a device. This flipped classroom approach allows classroom time to be reserved for collaborative discourse and other inquiry, like deep level inquiry. However, speaking and listening is not the only means to allow students to engage in that collaborative discourse. Feenberg stated in 1999 that writing is also a fantastic option for communicating and collaborating as opposed to just speaking. Technology is able to make it possible for teachers to assign students to collaborative groups using technology type what they would have otherwise spoken aloud. A huge benefit of this is that the teacher is then able to go back and read what the students typed, and that allows them to have an idea of the student's level of understanding. Now, when your students write instead of speaking, what happens is this slows down the production of the message to allow for more insightful research and well-crafted written communication. And when teachers allow students to use technology such as Google Docs for instance, for peer review. Sorry, I saw another little arrow was on there. Sorry, when they use technology like Google Docs for peer review, this can lead to deep and meaningful learning opportunities through deductive and focused tasks. Now, this does not mean there's no place for oral communication. The key here is that it's beneficial to have both oral and written. Written peer reviews lend themselves to be done with technology, with the Google Docs. However, there are emerging technologies such as VoiceThread that we all used in this class that allows students to engage in oral peer review, which was a lot of fun. Oral communication tends to be less reflective and precise compared to written communication, whereas oral communication works great in a setting climate for collaboration. So that was a decent amount of information. I just want to see what your level of understanding of this is at this point. So I'd like you to go ahead and take Google Docs for peer review is awesome. It's pretty easy. So if you could go ahead and, again, pull up that annotation tool, click on the text button, and all I want you to type is O for oral or W for written. So I want you to look at each of these different items. So for instance, inductively exploring ideas and generating commitment to an intended task. Is that more of a benefit probably for written, or is it more of a benefit for oral? So just take a moment, and I'm sure that there are options to argue for the opposite. So if you just want to take a moment. Now, I did get all this information from the text, and I know that you all read it too, so that's helpful. It's more than you just hearing it, and I typed a few things on the screen. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and share that for number 1. Yes, excellent, Dave. Very good. Yes. Inductively exploring ideas and generating commitment to an intended task definitely is a benefit of oral communication. And then number 2, more reflective and precise written is definitely more reflective and precise. I'll go ahead and go to number 4 to give you a chance if you want. Oh, there we go. Number 3, allowing more opportunities to question and share new ideas is really going to be written. It really is. And then 4, obviously, oral is quick and spontaneous. Now, there's obviously ways that you could argue one way or the other, but in general, that's going to be kind of the benefits of one or the other. So now that we've learned a little bit more about these ideas of communication technology and learner analytic technology, let's look at it in a really practical way. So there's a variety of research-based effective adaptive learning technologies like ALEX, that I use at my work stands for Assessment and Learning and Knowledge Spaces, that provide students with a personalized learning path. These adaptive technologies also provide teachers with real-time data and allow them to provide more targeted strategic intervention for individuals and small groups. If you have used adaptive technology in your classroom, go ahead and type in the chat box how you were able to use that. And you don't have to share if you don't want to. So Dusty already shared that you love using Google Docs, so that's a great use of technology. If you want to just type in the chat box, maybe one of, if you haven't used adaptive technology, then that's fine. Adaptive quizzes, perfect, excellent. That's a great use of that adaptive technology. So the ability to peer review requires students to be reflective and thoughtful. So it's one thing to have a collaborative conversation, but when students type a response and other students are able to peer review it digitally, whether it's anonymous or not, it requires them to think critically. Also, when students write for their peers, they tend to write better. So there's a lot of technologies like Google Docs that allow for this. It also allows the teacher to go back and view both. They can view what the student wrote as well as what the other students responded to. So what I'd like to do now is just click on the annotation tool, trying to use all these technologies, click on text, and if you could just type on the screen one benefit of digital peer review. One benefit of digital peer review. So just text, if you click on text, I think you should be able to type speed. Oh yes, oh yeah, that's a lot easier than finding the time to work with students individually. Opportunity to take time to reflect. Excellent. Fantastic, you guys. That is you're demonstrating a very deep understanding of these concepts. So finally, let's sum it all up. So teachers take the time, the same information that they were providing in an oral lecture in the video format, they're going to have multiple benefits. First of all, it allows time in class to dive deep in inquiry and collaborate. Second, it allows students to view the video multiple times and allows teachers to provide cues to correspond with the oral information, which could be very, very helpful. As I discussed throughout the web conference, while there's a place and time for social media, it's probably not going to be in the classroom. However, there's a lot of effective technologies such as adaptive learning pieces, Google Docs to allow for that collaboration and peer review that are available, and even more emerging technologies that we're learning about. So in summary, kind of as a final assessment, what I'd like you to do now is just take a moment, click on the chat box and type in one technology that you currently use or will use in your classroom and how you are currently using or how you will use it. You plan to use that maybe after this conference, you were inspired to use a new one to lead to deeper student engagement and meaning making. So if you just go ahead and type that in the chat. Just one technology that you're currently using, and you can recycle ideas that you've already shared. No problem. Flipgrid, excellent way for students to discuss topics. Dusty is going to have students use Flipgrid for video discussion, but you're going to do 60-second time limit. And forces of, summarizing is huge. Huge. Also will save you a lot of time. Excellent. Y'all, this was fantastic. The collaboration that we experienced, we actually got to experience, that collaboration using technology in here. And I hope that you were inspired. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email them to me. And of course, you can leave them in the chat. But I just want to say thank you all so much. And I hope you have a great evening.